Welcome to WO50 Podcast. Women over 50 embody wisdom and wellness.
Hello there. My name is Corrine, and I'm here with my BFF, Eddi. And today our topic is the power of the pause, menopause and other pauses after 50.
And we paused a lot.
Yeah, you just paused
changed.
that.
Oh, I did, because I was thinking we're doing our podcast.
That came up during during our recording, the pausecast. Yeah,
the podcast, and we talked about peri-menopause and menopause and post-menopause and
all the pauses that are needed in your life, and many ways to pause throughout the day. We didn't just talk about menopause and perimenopause. We talked about a lot of things. It was good. It was fun. And Eddi was her usual witty and informational self as usual.
So were you.
Thanks. We're each other's biggest fans.
We are. This is why we do this. We get to see each other every week.
That's right. And you give me confidence.
Yes, we're like Grace and Sophie.
Yeah. We hope you enjoy this as much as we did. Hello.
Hello.
We're pink and blue today. We're pink and blue, pink and blue,
blue and blue. Mm-hmm. No plans, just happened that way.
Yeah, and you got your cute little pigtails.
Yes, I had to, because I was out skiing today, cross-country skiing. We have some snow, and yeah, my first ski of the year.
Did you have enough of a pause over the holidays?
Oh, great, nice segue into it. Well, I did. That's our topic tonight, isn't it? It's the pause.
The power of the pause, menopause, and other pauses after 50.
Mm-hmm. It's so important to pause, like what I realized. Yes, with pausing your day, you become aware of your day. Where I notice as you get older, or as I get older, and people I know, they say, "Oh my God, the day went so fast," and well, my goodness, it just seemed like seconds ago I was getting ready to go to bed, and it's another day's gone. And that's when it really hit me that the pause, when you pause through your day and you reach the end of the day and you look back at your day, it doesn't seem to go that fast, because I don't know, you're having those present moments, right? Of just the pause. And today, the woods and the fresh snow, and the groomer came along, and now we get to do this today. So I don't know, those little pauses are little sips, I think.
Yeah, and it can be so many different things, because, I talk about meditation all the time, and we both meditate, but there's so many other ways to pause. And the natural, way nature pauses with menopause, and why that's even in the word. And you even always talk about menopause too, or you have a play on words with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Menopause and menopause and andropause. Men go through andropause. Yeah.
Yeah. You always say menopause is a pause on men. How do you say?
Yeah. Yeah. For women, it's a menopause.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's more of a regrouping for ourselves to kind of look at our lives and look at how far we've come and what we've done and where we're going, and reflection. And, it's kind of a regrouping. So because you get peri-menopause, then you get menopause, and then you have post-menopause. And it can be, 20 years going through those three chapters.
And I find that's what's challenging for people is change, which is so hilarious. As humans, many of us have problems with change, and especially when our body changes and our habits change and the way our body responds to food or exercise or whatever is changing. And the nature of life is change. Like that's the only constant in life is change, but we still have this challenge. So menopause is really, when some people have more perimenopause than others, and you start to feel those emotional changes with the hormones, and I find you maybe not so much patience in different relationships, and it might be needed that you need to have less patience. You know what I'm saying? We always say we need to have more patience, but sometimes people need to be put in their place. And I feel like that's what menopausal women are almost known for a little bit. It's like wise women that don't put up with bullshit and cut to the chase.
Yeah, it's funny because I just listened to an interview Jodie Foster just did about her life, and she's around our age. I think she's a year older, and she goes, "What I love about," and she's aging naturally, right? She's not pushing anything on or over or in her body. That's just everybody's right to do whatever they want,
Yeah.
but she wants to age naturally and embrace the aging process, kind of like ourselves here.
Yeah.
And she said this getting older piece has allowed her freedom of speech almost. It's that she can say what she really truly feels and really wants to say, and not in a way to offend anybody, but just that she's not holding back anymore. And I kind of feel that way too. I've been, most of my life just don't want to ruffle feathers and upset somebody, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. And anytime I do that now as I'm getting older, it seems to ruffle feathers. So I might as well just go, listen, this is happening, this is happening. And if you're mad about it, then that's how it's going to be. But it's there, right? To be dealt with rather than, well, we'll tell her that later and we'll do this now. And uh, it's too
Yeah.
much work. So
Yeah.
the pause there is, okay, how am I going to do this? The old doesn't work anymore. So let's put in some new stuff. And then we reflect on it and we pause on that. And then, and eventually we see that we can unclick the pause button and resume the movie.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, but it's so important, that pause. I remember I learned that one of the things I learned from Satya was, because I'm Pitta, so I can be a little bit of a hothead, especially when I was younger. I mean, you knew that when before I started dating, I was like kind of known for having a bit of a temper. My dad had a big temper, even my mom had a big temper too. As my family kind of communicates very passionate and loudly sometimes. And so I learned to Sachi used to say, just go slowly and drink water. And so I'd get an email that I wanted to blast, somebody back or something like that, dealing with it. And he goes, just stop and go slowly and drink water. And when you drink water, you have to pause, right? And just wait a minute before you react so that you're responding rather than reacting. So that can happen many times throughout the day. And in this social media and technological culture that we live in, it's like everything is so immediate. People, oh my gosh, the coaching that I do on the young ones, it's like if there's a certain timeline, if you don't respond to somebody's text in a certain amount of time, they think you're mad. And I'm like, well, what if you're busy or don't have your phone with you and you
Yeah.
have to explain yourself?
Yes, because everything's such an instant um, reaction. It's an instant society. Years ago we didn't have the phone, so you were found to come home for supper in the neighborhood somewhere because so and so told so and so, and you might get home for supper an hour too late, because no one had a phone. Where now it's supper time. Ding. I want to talk to you now. Ding. It's instant. It's almost, and it's become a real big dopamine hit.
Yeah.
There's books written on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Just
yeah.
scrolling. I was listening to a podcast, Trevor Noah podcast the other day. He has a new podcast and I just love him. And he was talking about with one of the guys that was on the Social Dilemma. He was one of
Mhm.
they did, that created some of these things that we in our technology. And, he was the one that said, I think on the social dilemma that that they hire the smartest people in the world, the smartest engineers and programmers in the world to try to figure out how to hold your attention, to create algorithms to try to hold your attention. And so he said his
Wow.
partner, and then he stopped that. Once he saw where it was going, he quit all of that. And his kids don't use any technology. His story is very interesting. But he's now trying to help people be aware of, because I feel like if we're aware, we use technology like anything else, it doesn't use us, right? It's hard, but it just takes awareness and educating yourself. And his partner invented infinite scrolling.
Oh,
You have to think
gosh.
about it for a minute, right? So it used
Yeah.
to be when we scrolled on Facebook and Instagram, there was a stop and you had to go to a next page or wait for the next page to load. But that no longer exists anymore. It's
Mm.
infinite scrolling. I've noticed that YouTube is now, it never used to be infinite scrolling because you see our
Oh.
brains like a completion.
Mhm.
Getting to the end of the page is like, okay, but they don't want that. So that's why you keep doing
Oh,
it because you're looking for that completion. So every time I'm on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, I'm very aware of that. It's that my body, my brain is looking for a completion, but I'm not going to get it. So just
yeah.
like decide how long you want to do it. Otherwise, you'll be at the mercy of your physiology.
Wow.
Not
Wow.
wild.
The importance of the pause is even more important now
Yes, because there
because
is
it's
no
not even
pause.
worked in anymore unless your phone freezes or
Yeah.
your internet goes
And
down.
then how much do you freak out when your phone freezes? How do I get this back on?
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it something? We should call it a pause cast instead of a podcast.
That's a little late, Eddie, to come up with
Welcome to our pause cast.
that.
I know. I love the whole idea of pausing though. And I just like meditation, I have to intentionally think about it every day. I'm going to pause now and watch the snow falling, or I'm going to pause and watch. Like the other day, my grandson came up into my music room and he started. He has this little Beats app and he started working out on that, and I kind of peeked in because I want to give him his private time because he he's quiet and he likes that, and I peeked in and I had to record a little piece of it just for me because and then when I stop and I watch it, I'm like, oh, so sweet to see that. Because even in our lives, we don't pause enough because those moments go so quick. And this is why pictures are so important too, right? Capturing moments. So, and we can capture them. We don't have to capture them on the cameras. We do have to capture them in our mind
Hmm.
mostly,
Hmm.
mostly, because it never looks the same. Something, if you look at the mountains and I look at the mountains and we look at the picture of the mountains, there's three different pictures.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
It's
All the,
perspective, it's
mhm.
view, it's our idea of what that is. So everybody's pause is going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listening to birds, sing, or listening when some people go, oh my God, I didn't even realize there's birds land on my trees. Or I can hear the planes flying at a certain, like some people just aren't even aware of the sounds
Hmm.
till we sit back and go, and sometimes we want to be. So find something else you want to pause on. Well,
Hmm.
it could be cooking, right?
Yeah. No, I find cooking incredibly meditative.
Mm-hmm.
Very relaxing, very, especially when I've got like 2 hours in the kitchen, I'm prepping for, making spaghetti. I usually take a couple hours to make my spaghetti. And it's just so meditative and slow. And sometimes I'll listen to music, sometimes I'll listen to a podcast, but I also just love just cooking. It's just a very mellow, mellow time. It's awesome.
Yes, and we've become very fast with cooking. That's why it's called fast food because it's ready really fast. And we need slow food. We need to slow it down. We need slow cooking. And that's the pause. Even when we are cooking and we want to add a few flavors, like just pause even in that moment to go, hmm, what did I just mix in there? Because we're so fast, right? With stuff. Anyway, I'm guilty of that a lot. Cooking.
But you
Like,
also, yeah, the cooking. Well, you got when you retire, you're not working. I mean, you'll always do something, but if you
yes.
sometimes don't go into the office, it's like you take the time then.
Oh, yes. No, I love to cook, but I just go, when I want something to eat, I'm not pausing like to go, what would that flavor add? But yeah, when I'm creating like, you know, dairy free, gluten free, sugar free desserts, I'm pausing a lot to go, okay, how can I get that tasting? Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that pausing is good for. And again, it's naturally built into us through nature with
Oh, yeah.
perimenopause and menopause. It's like,
And look at when perimenopause occurs. Okay, for most people, late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, sometimes late 40s. Some people early 50s, but for most people it's the 40s. And then the 50s we go into menopause, and then the 60s we're usually considered post-menopause. That's
Mhm.
kind of the window. Now we can smudge each area a little bit because there are, so many variables.
Yeah.
But those are really 3 decades of pausing. And perimenopause is okay, it's coming on. I've had my children, it's coming, or no children, or it's coming towards the end of a cycle, my, you know, ability to have children. Then we go into menopause and we don't have any eggs left in the basket. And we reflect on where we are in our lives. And this is just like a quick synopsis, right? Quick,
Can we go
what would
back
you
to
call it?
perimenopause? Because I'd like to share sort of what the sort of typical, I know nothing's typical and there's a wide variety of things we can experience in perimenopause,
Yes.
menopause, and postmenopause, but maybe we can discuss like both of our experiences and your experience with your clients. With
Sure.
perimenopause, for me, it started at 43, and I think I was in it for at least a year, or maybe it started at 42, because I think it was 43 when I called you and I'm like, Eddie, I'm 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 a little bit depressed. I've never been depressed in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And you said, are your eyes starting to go like your close vision is
Oh,
shifting?
yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. I've not have to use the eyeglasses yet, but it's blurry. The small print is getting more blurry. And you said that's hormonal changes. You're in perimenopause.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And those are the symptoms that start happening. People notice a change in their personality,
Mhm.
whether they're not as happy-go-lucky as they used to be. There's a gloominess or a low level or even a high level depression, some anxiety, questioning their life, what they've done, even marriages. And that's where, I used to say, remember, I think I said in one of the other podcasts, when you're in this perimenopausal stage, don't pierce, kill, tattoo, or divorce anything yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Let's
yeah.
make sure it's not hormonal, or that, well, it is hormonal, but sometimes balancing out these hormones, getting your adrenals back on track, your thyroid, because people gain weight, they feel like there's something going on with their metabolism, they start having sleep issues, bowel issues, and
It can
yeah,
be very
blood levels start
confusing.
changing.
Yeah.
What's that?
It can be very confusing.
Yeah, it can be,
I
especially
know.
when you've been raising your children or family, or you've been building a business and you've really not paused and reflected a lot on your own self, right? And so perimenopause is just that. It's perimenopausal symptoms happening that are saying, okay, time to pause now and see what needs to tweak out here.
Yeah.
Are you
Not,
managing your stress properly? Are you eating properly, right? Like
yeah.
for you right now.
Yeah.
And
Do you have good relationships, in your life, good friends, and are you nurturing that, your relationships and, just when you pause, those are the kinds of things that you can notice in your life, sort of assess your life, one
Mhm,
we talked about it. I taught a bliss day yesterday, and it was because it was so close to New Year, we were doing some mapping and some goal setting. And
mhm,
it's like I remember a couple years ago, when was actually my financial advisor years ago, he was telling me that him and his wife, they were married for like 20 years or something. And he said that every year, once a year, they would go on a specific couples retreat together, and they would kind of look back on their year, what they enjoyed, what they didn't enjoy, what they want to do better next year, set some goals as a couple,
mhm.
and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And who does that as a relationship?
Yeah,
Like, we tend to do goal setting on our own, but who does that as a couple?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you
that's
and your honey
great.
sat down recently talking about, your future, where you want to live in the winters, and just think, just talking about things, because we just get so into the day-to-day life that we don't pause to kind of look
Mhm,
at where we are, because we're always where we are because of our past choices. You
mhm,
know, we don't just magically end up in a difficult situation by doing nothing. Now, that can vary, there's illnesses that can come up, but if somebody's finances are really bad, it's probably because they're not great with finances, you know? And so it's like you can look back and see at the choices you've made, and if you can reassess things, and you can make different choices in the future. That's the pause, the power of the pause.
That's the power of the pause. And it also with perimenopause, it's your periods are changing. So people notice that shift happening, right? Where in once you go into menopause, your periods stop.
Hmm.
And and that's reflected in blood work, or you're not having a period every
Yeah.
month. So, and then those symptoms escalate. So then some people ace through menopause, especially if they've dealt with a lot of perimenopausal things. So, but menopause is then another time to pause. So you could go into menopause, you know, 5 to 10 years after you've started into perimenopause. It's kind of
Mhm.
like a sliding scale, is what it feels like. And you go into menopause, and then that's your real gift in life, to sit and go, wow, what have I done in my life? And you look at your accomplishments and you look at what you've done, and the children are either leaving the nest or have left the nest, or we're tending to seniors, or extended family. Like there's so many variables. But it's the big deep drink time of going, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? That deep question, not just what color do I paint the room? Sometimes we realize I don't like that color. So we start really digging deep in 50s and after 50s, and we start, in menopause, we have to give support to what is given us the highest volume, symptomatically. If it's pain, arthritic pain, if it's weight gain, if it's hormonal bloating, what, right? There's so many things. Depression, again, anxiety. How's it managing? How are we managing our lives? How are we managing our symptoms? And some people need hormone replacement therapy at this time. Some people need to take something for their anxiety or depression, or sometimes do CBD or THC or mushrooms, whatever, right? There's like everybody's got
Woohoo!
everybody's got something, right? They need some balance with. That's what the pause is about.
Yeah, to so you can listen.
Yeah,
I love, in organizing this retreat that I'm doing with Alea coming up in March. It's like a it's like a retreat every time I talk with her and we discuss, our either our language of the retreat or whatever. And I call it deep listening, you
I
know.
love her because, yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but the thing I want to say about Alea is I love her language. It's like it's a no language.
Mm.
It's a whole other way of communicating, where she just really gets you thinking. There's no judgment. There's no oh, I have to find the answer to that. It's
No.
more, huh, yeah, I never looked at it like that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
deep listening. Of course, we're talking about Alea, who I can link to her website in our notes, podcast notes. But she's a wonderful woman who I met 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and then Eddie um, has met now, and we did a retreat together with her, and she's just a wonderful human who's been very helpful to for both of us. And
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and so I've got a retreat coming up with her at Well-Being. And yeah, she knows how to pause. I mean, she'll when you talk to her, just this deep listening. And
Mm-hmm.
we feel like we have to respond even when we're talking to somebody, like right away, or we have to have the conversation going. You know how the old saying was, they used to talk about it in movies or whatever, you're really comfortable with someone when you don't have to have any words and you can just sit in silence together, you know? And so how do you have any friends that you can sit in silence and not talk, or driving down the road in Sicily, not feel the need to talk for 20 minutes or whatever,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
talk nonstop. I mean, you and I do tend to find
Well,
conversations, but we both know how to pause
we
too.
know how to pause, but we have so much to share. That's what's beautiful with when you have long relationships like ours, our long friendship. It's yeah. And because it's so lovely that we um encourage the growth in each other. You know, you're so good with sharing. Alea's kind of like you want to keep her to yourself, but it's when you share her, you're like, she's for everybody, you know?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and it's because she's not preaching and she's not teaching. She's just and she's not even sharing. She's just kind of sitting in your space with you. And I think half the time she's going, I don't know what I'm doing. This is like I'm just this is happening, right?
So it's
And
tending to
really,
what arises. So
yeah.
whatever arises, you're tending to. And man, I've noticed it so much, like in my coaching or teaching retreat, and then notice it with me. It's like we bring such a huge Santa bag full of emotions and past stories in
Mhm.
almost every conversation that we have. Like I got this one new girl I'm coaching, and I'm pretty sure she's got ADHD because the focus is just very difficult for her. And every time I bring her to the present moment of something, she references the past. And I'm
Mm,
like, that's okay to do that once in a while, but let's just for right now be here right now for what's just arising right now. And she couldn't do it. It was like
mm,
constantly telling stories about the past when she felt that way. I'm like, just come back now, just right here. What are you feeling right now? It
yeah.
is so interesting that we do that. And so pausing helps to notice that too, is how much extra, because it's kind of exhausting to
Mm.
have all these stories in our head all the time about things, about whether people or situations or things. And and so to start to realize when you pause what's really important, as Alea would say, what's alive and true, but even just in this, it just what's important right now in this moment, and what can I just let go of and just be here now.
It's even the old advice given was count to nine. Okay, if you have something to say and you're really heated in this moment, just count to nine. It's
Not
then,
10.
you know, nope,
10 and not
nine.
5.
Nope, nine. Because for some reason, nine was the magic number. It took the heat out of something. That's what I was always told growing up. Just count to nine before you speak.
Never heard that. That's funny. I love
Yep,
it.
count to nine. So I was like, okay. So I think about that, and even today, like if I feel I have to say something to somebody, you know, say it's something, you know, with family or whatever, because that's usually where the buttons get pushed, and then you count to nine. It's really not that important.
Yeah.
It's really not. Does that really have to be said with
Yep.
that many words, right? And it kind of loses the heat. It's like air out of a balloon.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's why the pause, I think, is beautiful. And that's why the gift of perimenopause, menopause, post or whatever, postal menopause, not going postal, but post menopause. It's the pause. It's whatever we want to call it. There is no set in stone amount of time you're going to be in all of these phases. All we know is that we're embracing aging through our wisdom and our wellness, right? Through sharing, and we pause and reflect and honor and continue to do this every 5 to 10 years. Really, we're shifting big time.
Mm-hmm.
Shifts are big.
Mm-hmm.
But
Shedding the
in that, yeah, and that 40 to 60 span is really big, you know,
yeah.
40 to 50 to 60. If I reflect on my life, wow, what I've done in those 20 years, right? But it's still a little it's just a little bunch of pauses when you look back at it.
Well, hopefully it is. Because as a
Yeah.
yogi, it's like there is like we breathe, our breath is so important. Our breath keeps us alive, right? The inhale, the exhale is happening without any effort whatsoever. But there's a pause at the end of the inhale and at the end of the exhale. There's a pause, even though it might be very brief, but if you videotaped a wave coming in and out, is always there's a pause. There's pauses in nature. There's even the cycle of
Yeah.
winter, spring, summer, fall. There's that time to pause, to hibernate. So it's a
Hmm.
very natural thing for us to do. So finding that balance of enough pauses throughout the day,
Hmm.
and with relationships and with your, doesn't have to just be meditation, but there's just taking a pause. Because there's a book called Noise that
Hmm.
what's the is it Daniel Kahneman? Who's coming to my mind, might have been him. Anyways, is a scientist and just talks about all the noise in the world. And there's noise in the head,
Hmm.
and then there's noise out in the world too. But when we
Yes,
pause, the first thing we usually notice is all the noise in the world or in our heads. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it, because the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get with the pauses.
that's right. That's right. Just like the wave when the ocean, what that reminded me of is when you sit at the beach and the water flows in and then you hear the pull of the rocks,
Mhm.
that kind of pull as the wave pulls back out and it pauses and then it comes back in again. You hear that.
And
Isn't
it's
it
yeah,
cool?
yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same with us. Even when we're asleep, we'll pause. We'll take the breath and, like you said, the pause at the end.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, and
beautiful.
sleep is a pause too, but to have conscious awake pauses is
Yes.
great. So that was good. I like that conversation, Ed. That was, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like you and I are pretty good at pausing, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
always a good reminder.
Always. Always. And just ways of pausing.
Yeah.
There's and I love that we brought in the perimenopause and the menopause and even just the pauses in those areas. So even give yourself that time if you're in perimenopause or in menopause or you're through all the pausing. Still
Mhm.
pause.
That's right. That's right. All right. Until next time, I hope everybody's having a wonderful new year, and that you're nurturing yourself. And, we like to remind you once in a while, when we remember, to share the podcast and like it and subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, it's very helpful for us so that we can keep on doing this. And you can reach out and email us too. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any topics that you'd like for us to talk about, we'd love to hear it from you.